What is up, everybody? I hope you are having a fantastic evening as we head into Kansas City Chiefs week. And these Thursday games, man, I like them to a certain extent because you have your whole weekend to do whatever it is you want to do. Really, no pressure. But then there's this thought of like, God, it really feels like the 49ers haven't played football in a month. And it hasn't even been a week yet. But knowing they don't play till Sunday, it feels like forever. The bye week's even stranger. But nonetheless, here we are. It's Chiefs week. It's a big one. Make sure you watch tomorrow night when we do Behind Enemy Lines. I'll be back with my guy Daniel from last year. Super Bowl preview. Cannot wait for that show. It's going to be a really, really good show. But tonight, I'm going to be answering your questions. And you guys submitted a ton of questions on YouTube. I went through and read all of them and liked most of them. And if I didn't like it, it's nothing personal. I just forgot to hit like on it. But either way, I read them all and liked them. And then I took 10 that were, to me, I thought the most interesting. And or like some of these were just often asked questions that were kind of similar. And so I just chose one person's and put it together. But these are 10 questions heading into the Chiefs game that you guys want answered. So I'm going to answer those next, right after this intro. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports. We are giving you our take down to the last second. And it's Tuesday. Normally I would have Sunil on, but he's been traveling a ton. It's been really hard to get those shows off with him. Sounds like we'll be going next Tuesday for sure. And then we'll kind of see what happens after that. And that's all right. I got 10 questions for y'all, or from y'all rather, that you really want answered going into this game. What's up, Matthew? See you. Romello, what's up? Catral, how you doing? And then Mike, true that some refs that were in the Super Bowl with the Chiefs are reffing this game. No, not true at all, actually. In fact, that I'm glad you asked because that is one of the questions. All right. Here we go. Here we go. Whoa. Hold on a second. Are you talking about me? I crap on Rodgers? I don't know that I've ever crapped on Rodgers. You might have the wrong guy. Other than that, tell me what it is where I crapped on Rodgers. I would be curious to see. All right, let's answer some of these questions. Here we go. Hold on. Now, I definitely have crapped on the Jets. I didn't buy into their brand all offseason, but I think Aaron Rodgers is pretty legit. Okay. First question from at Caba Rojo says, who is the officiating crew and what are their tendencies? This is why I said, interesting that you asked the question. Oh, we can talk trade ideas. In fact, I'll start this right now and we'll get to it. We'll definitely get to it. So this is why I like this question to start off. So Caba Rojo says, who is the officiating crew and what are their tendencies? I don't know much about tendencies or how to even track that down, but I will tell you that Alex Kemp is the head official in this game. And Alex Kemp, believe it or not, has officiated 3 49ers playoff games. The last 3 years, he's been the head official for 3 playoff games. All of them were 49er games, and all of them were wins. So he officiated 49ers Seahawks. He officiated 49ers Cowboys. And last year, he officiated 49ers Packers. 49ers won all 3 of those games. I know this year of the 5 games he's officiated, the home team has won 4 of those. He did officiate the last game between the 49ers and Chiefs in the regular season, which was a couple years ago. But no, he has actually officiated some important 49ers games, and all those games have resulted in wins. And the last time that he officiated a 49er loss happened to be against the Chiefs, but I don't remember coming out of that game thinking it was poorly officiated by any means. Remember, that was Christian McCaffrey's first game with the 49ers. So, yeah, I don't think we should have a major issue at all. I don't know about the tendencies, but I do know that Alex Kemp seems to be in favor of the Niners, I guess, if you can look at it that way, or at least in favor of letting the 49ers play football and the 49ers win those games that he officiates. I think it's a great question. All right. Number 2 was from Spidey G 1163. Says swap Shanahan and Reed, same rosters. How many rings does each team have since 2017? So you're assuming with this question that Patrick Mahomes is still drafted by the Chiefs and Shanahan is the head coach. Well, Chiefs have 3 Super Bowl wins and the 49ers have none. I would say if you would swap the roster, or excuse me, just swap the coaches. See, this is tough because I just don't know how Mahomes would have developed under Shanahan. I don't know that I trust him to develop quarterbacks. I'll go with the Chiefs would have 2 and the 49ers would have 1. I don't know that if they would have ever met in a Super Bowl, the 2 of them, and how that would have gone. But I think the 49ers would have a ring if Andy Reid had been coaching them with the same roster. So I'll go with 49ers 1, Chiefs have 2. Maybe they met in a Super Bowl, maybe they didn't. I don't know. But there's no scientific data to like back this up. It's just a gut feeling, I guess. I think it's a good question, though. Thank you. All right. Next question was from D Devon 26. Says, do you think we see Pearsall and does he take JJ snaps? I don't know that we'll see Ricky this week. I have a feeling maybe headed into Dallas he'll play. I mean, maybe he'll play this week. I know that the practice window is open. I don't know that he'll be active. I don't think he eats into really anybody's snaps. In fact, Coach and I had this debate the other day. Coach seems to think, maybe I have this wrong. So if he's in here or he hears this, he'll be like, hey, you misrepresented my thought. But Coach seems to think that Pearsall can help. And I'm not saying that he can't. But to me, I don't see Ricky getting more than 10 snaps in any game unless somebody's hurt. Like, who are you going to take off the field? Are you going to take Ayuk off the field for him? No. Are you going to take Jennings off the field for him? No. Debo? No. So unless somebody gets hurt, maybe he sees 10 snaps a game, which means like a good game, he'll get 3 catches maybe. I don't know. I don't have anything against Ricky. I mean, shoot. Actually, I think the coolest thing in the world would be for him to be activated. I hope he gets a major standing ovation, whether it's against the Chiefs or against the Cowboys. And I hope that he balls the hell out. I hope he catches a touchdown and something magical happens. I really do. But I can't rely on a player that I've never seen play in the NFL. So I don't suspect that he'll be taking snaps away from anybody anytime soon. Now, obviously, the future is hopefully he's good, and then you can let go of a Debo or something like that. But unless somebody gets hurt, I don't see a big part of the game plan carved out for Ricky Pearsall. It's just my feeling. But what I will say though, and when I was talking to Coach, I did bring this up. I think Ricky Pearsall should be the punt returner. I do. Because first of all, in the practices, he was the most shorthanded. Everybody else was dropping him and all sorts of crazy stuff. I think he's shorthanded, much like a Trent Taylor. but he's young and explosive, unlike a Trent Taylor. So Jacob Cowing, I love his athleticism. I still wish they drafted Anthony Gold, who I think is basically the same player as Cowing, except for a much better punt returner. But they didn't. They took Jacob Cowing, and Jacob Cowing, I think, can be decent if he's given a shot. But as far as a punt returner, with the fumble and then the slips last week, I'm done watching that. I think it's too much of a risk. Ricky Pearsall gets activated. I want to see him be the punt returner immediately. Immediately. I think that's where he can carve out a niche. But as far as like offensive weapon, yeah, I don't see that. Not immediately, anyways. I think it's going to take some time. Okay. We've got Dudes 8851 says, what do the 49ers need to do to finally get over the hump versus Kansas City? Man. It's like you felt like they've had the better roster both times, and they haven't been able to get it done. I think the obvious things, win the turnover battle and time of possessions matter. Yes, I think all that matters. But to answer your question specifically, I'm going to say Brock Purdy has to clearly outplay Patrick Mahomes. Now, I'm definitely not saying Brock Purdy's better than Patrick Mahomes. A lot of people, there's some weird stuff going on right now with this whole, it's still happening. It's been going on for weeks. It just needs to stop. I don't care what the numbers are. Win a freaking Super Bowl. If Brock Purdy was better than Patrick Mahomes or playing so much better than Patrick, they would have won a Super Bowl. I'm sorry. It just would have happened. That being said, Brock Purdy doesn't have to be better than Patrick Mahomes to outplay Patrick Mahomes for a game. And there are ways that the 49ers can allow him to outplay Patrick Mahomes by aiding that process along. So let me tell you what I mean by that. All right. So the 49ers, we've all been talking about running play action a little bit more. A lot of it more, really. They run play action like 19.5% of their snaps this year, which is it's climbing up, but it's still low, and it started out very low. They run pre-snap motion about 75% of the time, which is top few in the league. They're always running pre-snap motion. But let me give you some numbers here. So passer rating I don't think is the best stat, but it gives you some representation here of what running play action and what running pre-snap motion can do for a quarterback, okay? So if a quarterback simply runs play action, doesn't run pre-snap motion, their quarterback rating or their passer rating goes up by 14 points, like league average. League average passer rating versus league average play action, 14-point difference. Now, if an offense runs motion pre-snap without play action, just runs motion, passer rating goes up by 9 points on average. And if an offense runs both play action and pre-snap motion in the same play, on average, a quarterback's passer rating goes up 18 full points. Now, the 49ers run a lot of motion, as much as anybody in the league. So Brock Purdy essentially has that 9-point boost almost every snap. But he can gain another 9% if they run play action with it. Right? Like that's a big, big number. That's massive. And that's average across the league. So all quarterbacks, that is a pretty staggering statistic when you look at it. So if Kyle Shanahan can get creative continue to run pre-snap motion, add in a ton of play action, then I think Brock Purdy absolutely can play better than Patrick Mahomes for a game. And I think that's what it's going to take. A lot of people look at like the stats last year. I forget who I saw doing this the other day. I don't know if it was a tweet or whatever, but they were comparing Brock Purdy versus Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. And that was it, the way they did it was so clear that they were trying to skew it towards Brock Purdy's way because they didn't talk at all about the rushing, which was like the biggest difference in that game. The rushing of Patrick Mahomes is what won that game for them. That's why they won. So you could take the passing statistics and yards per attempt and this and that, but it's when they played at the highest level in that game, and also Patrick Mahomes using his legs was an absolute difference maker in that game. So that has to be accounted for as well. It has to. All right. Next question. Luis 1208 says, what should be the plan for Chris Jones? More quick passes. Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I think Dominic Pooney helps here. Just naturally, Dominic Pooney is a much better player than what they had at right guard last year. So I think that helps. I think the biggest thing is just moving the pocket, moving the launch point for Brock Purdy. I think the 49ers at times have been at their best. Now, I think more so with Jimmy just because Brock will push the ball down the field and he's more comfortable doing so. But with Jimmy, it was like when they would get sideline to sideline and just stretch the field horizontally around the line of scrimmage, it was a big, big help. So I would say mix some of that in, but really let the play be designed where Brock Purdy's on the move. Like Chris Jones is a beast, don't get me wrong, but if Brock Purdy is getting a head start and rolling one way or the other, Jones isn't catching him. He's just not. So it makes his job a lot harder. And obviously you can't do it every snap. I understand that. Play action obviously helps as well. That'll slow him down. Dump off passes helps. It's just all comes down to the game plan. There's so many different things they can do, but I think running play action, I think dump off passes, I think moving the launch point. You do those three things throughout the game consistently enough, and you can at least contain or slow down Chris Jones. I mean, they did it for so many years with Aaron Donald. Chris Jones has been a whole different beast for them for whatever reason, but you can implement some of those things to make it work. So there you go. All right, let's see if there's any questions that you guys have, and I'll star them as we go. Okay, why do you think Kyle doesn't run more play? He said that it's because teams are showing him things that he doesn't feel like it'll work because play action takes more time. It's like, well, yeah, but I mean, it also slows the defense down. I mean, we watched it this last week where when the 49ers would run play action, those Seahawks linebackers would get so far moved up. It was clear that the Seattle game plan early in that game defensively was clog the middle of the field, much like they used to with Jimmy Garoppolo. They wanted to clog the middle of the field. The first two pass attempts that Brock had, he wanted to go over the middle of the field and couldn't because there were defenders there. But as the game wore along, they started mixing in play action. Those linebackers would suck up, and then all of a sudden, those shots over the middle became viable. So, yeah, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Okay. Gomer0 says, do you expect a lot of press man, and what can the 49ers do to counteract press man? Well, I think even teams that run a high amount of man don't run it a ton. They still run zone more than they do man. Chiefs run man about 30% of the time. Now, when they do run man, they're very effective. So, obviously, game plans can change. Maybe that 30 goes to 35 against the 49ers if they see something, maybe 40. But you're still going to see more zone than you see man. I think they're effective when they do run man. The stats bear that out. I think when they run man, it works. But there's going to be Spagnuolo's going to come with a masterful game plan, whatever it is. But how do you beat press man? Even if you have receivers that can't beat it one-on-one, there are still ways to do it. I think pre-snap motion definitely helps. The 49ers do that a lot. I think motion while the snap is happening certainly helps as well. I think the 49ers are around like 30% of the time they have somebody in motion while they're snapping. You can up that number. One thing you rarely see from the 49ers is bunch formations. So, like where you have guys off the line of scrimmage behind other players, that can help. So there's a multitude of different things. I think motion, pre-snap and during the snap, bunch formations, play action obviously helps as well. It's interesting that a lot of this keeps coming back to play action helping out and why they should probably run more play action. But also the Chiefs passing defense is it's not impossible to beat. They're not creating a lot of turnovers. They're not getting a ton of sacks. They're just sound. Really, their run defense is what's dominant this year. Their run defense is incredible this year. But you can pass on the Chiefs. You can put up stats on the Chiefs. It's just does that timely mistake. It seems like whenever they force a mistake, it's like the most timely portion of the game when it matters most. That's how the Chiefs always seem to win. It's like everybody clutches up when the game is on the line. Offense, defense, coaching, everything. Everybody just knows how to clutch up and win games. But statistically, if you look at their turnovers that they force, how many turnovers they force, the yards they give up, they're not overly impressive in the pass game when it comes to those things. But they get stops when they need to. You're probably not scoring a lot. In fact, let's just look at the red zone stats right now. Well, let's take a look at it. See the red zone defense. Red zone defense. We'll look it up right now. We'll look up touchdown percentage. There you go. Kansas City allows 46.67% red zone touchdown percentage. But the last three has been much higher, around 57%. So there you go. I mean, the 49ers struggle to score red zone touchdowns, and the Chiefs are good at not giving up red zone touchdowns. That's going to be the game right there. The 49ers, I think, are going to be able to move the ball. Statistically, the Chiefs will allow them to do that. So once they get into the 20, what do they do with it? I think that's really going to be a key to the game for sure. At Nico to the P says, what do the 49ers need to do to improve in the red zone? That's funny. I didn't even know that question was next. I don't think there's one thing that is stopping them from scoring in the red zone. I don't think it's just Brock's fault. I don't think it's just receiver separation. I don't think it's just Kyle Shanahan and his play calling. I don't think it's the lack of a run game or just the lack of a run game. I think it's all of those things are playing a factor. There have been times in the red zone where I'm like, what is this play calling? What are we looking at right now? Like, why are we doing double moves in the end zone? Why are we running all of our receivers away from the middle of the field in the end zone? So there's been times where I've seen it on Kyle. There have been times where there have been open receivers that Brock is looking at and has had time and didn't throw the ball for whatever reason. That's been a part of it. There have been times where they haven't ran well at all in the red zone. I mean, just 2 weeks ago, we had a fumble in a key moment in the red zone when they were about to score. So that just took points completely off the board. And there have been times when the receivers have been not able to get open. So I think it's everything. Everything matters. Everything's gonna have to be a little bit better for them to be better and consistent in the red zone. Now, we saw a shift in the second half of that Seattle game. Hopefully they can use that and parlay it. But consistently, they've been inconsistent. So, and there's a lot of things that go into it. I also think that there's a portion that EMC is a big part of what they do. I mean, he just is. I think he's a big part of what they do to help them on third down. I think he's a big part of what they did in the red zone. I mean, he's scored a lot of touchdowns. Scores a lot. So him not being there certainly hurts, but that can't be an excuse. I mean, CMC's not going to be there forever anyways. You have to find a way to score without CMC. You just have to. So the 49ers are going to have to figure it out. They're going to have to figure it out. Okay. Belichick says, Jesse, I feel like every play action boot we've ran this year has had a free rusher to the rollout side. I feel like that wasn't the case last year. Yeah, some of it's going to be by design. Some of it's going to be by design. And I think this is, and I've talked about this on film breakdowns all the time. But for me, I don't mind when Brock Purdy has to face that, because Brock Purdy, I think the thing that he does the best is stop on a dime and change arm angles. And every time I watch it, I point it out. Every time I see it in a film breakdown, I point it out. I get excited. It's one of my favorite things, if not my favorite thing that he does. And I think he's one of the better players in the whole entire league at this. His stop-start ability, his suddenness to stop and start, and his ability to change arm angles is special. And so I think when you have that free rusher, usually that rusher's in conflict, because sometimes it's like, okay, well, I can rush, but I've also got a tight end leaking right here for a dump off. And that's why the free rusher is available. So if the free rusher wants the free rush, then he's going to give up the completion. And then you got to hope on the back end that they're tackling. If he's going to roll out and kind of go with whoever's leaking out of the right side or whatever side you're rolling out on, then Brock Purdy's going to have time to just stand back there and do whatever he wants. So I think some of that's probably by design. I think some of it can happen if a team is blitzing as well, if they're blitzing off the edge and that's the call you have. But I actually don't mind it. I don't think it's like a design flaw or anything like that. I have noticed it a lot more this year. I definitely am picking up what you're seeing. I just don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, because I think Brock can handle it at a pretty high level. Dazza says, not sure why 49er fans think this team is back. The Seahawks were blown out by the Lions, lost to the Giants. Detroit put the NFC on notice with a blowout against Dallas, and we're toying with them. That whole thing is interesting. They embarrassed Dallas in the way that I have not seen a team embarrass another team in a long time. Like, that was bad. The way they did it, it was so over the top. It was so over the top. Like, I don't know that was needed, but they did it, and it was very impressive. So I agree with that. Yeah, I don't think saying that the 49ers beat the Seahawks and so they're back. They always beat the Seahawks. I mean, Jared Goff was a perfect like 18 for 18 passing against them. Daniel Jones looked phenomenal against the Seahawks defense. The injuries they have on defense and still trying to figure out this Mike McDonald game plan. It's just they're not a good defense right now. They're a very, very beatable team. So yeah, I don't think we should say that they're back by any means. But Kansas City's coming at an interesting time. I'd rather be facing Kansas City off a win than a loss. So you beat Kansas City and you can definitely say, hey, we're back. But yeah, the Lions, and then the Lions losing Hutchinson. I mean, that was huge, huge for their team. I wouldn't put it past them to be going after some big fish, though. I'm not saying they're going to get them, but this is completely off topic. But I'm going to throw this out because I like the NFL and just football in general. If I'm the Cleveland Browns, I offer Myles Garrett to Detroit for 2 first-round picks. If I'm Detroit, I do that deal first and foremost. I think if Detroit were to get Max Crosby or Myles Garrett for 2 first-round picks, it would be worth it. But so if I'm them, I say, hey, I'll give you Myles Garrett and maybe like a 2026 fourth or something for 2 first-round picks. And then if you can get that deal to go through, I then take my first-round pick, because Detroit's first-round pick isn't going to net anything. But I take my first-round pick, which is probably going to be a top 5, top 7 pick. I pair it with Deshaun Watson, and I offer it to a team, multiple teams that are quarterback needy. Not because they're going to use Deshaun Watson, because Deshaun Watson is awful. But because you're basically going to pay them a first-round pick, a top 5-ish pick, to eat half of the cap for you. They're going to take Deshaun Watson. They're going to cut him immediately. You're going to take a massive cap hit, but save about $90 million in cap by doing it. They're going to take a massive cap hit, but they can because they're a team that's rebuilding, and they're going to use your first round pick with their first round pick, and they're going to go get their quarterback of the future. I know that's a lot. I know this isn't Madden. I'm spitballing, throwing things out there. That's what I would do if I was running the Cleveland Browns, but I'm not running the Cleveland Browns. Also, I wouldn't have guaranteed Watson all that money if I was running the Cleveland Browns, but here they are. All right. Calvin's Hobbs, or Calvin Schaubs, however you want to say it, says, are you planning to attend a game this year? We need you to go if they make the playoffs. Well, unfortunately, I did attend a game and they lost. So what are you going to do? I mean, they lost to the Rams. My streak of being unbeaten in this era, this Shanahan era, is no more. But I can always start a new streak, and it's going to start with the Bucs this year. I will be at the Bucs 49ers game. And if we win that game, I still really want to go see them in Buffalo. I think that experience would be phenomenal. But I don't want to go alone either. And not a lot of people are excited about Buffalo in November. So there is that. I would also like to go to Green Bay. I would love to see Lambeau Field. I think both of those atmospheres would be phenomenal. So maybe I'll attend one of those. But if the 49ers are in the NFC Championship, I'll be at that game. Yeah, I'll be at the NFC Championship. That's pretty much a guarantee. Pretty much a guarantee. All right, back to these questions. Okay. Yaz Williams says, or Yazin Williams 9577 to be exact, says, are they going to allow Campbell to get cooked all game by Kelsey? Interesting that you asked that question, because Matt McEwen, shout out to Matt McEwen, and I didn't double check the stat, so he may be wrong, but I'm going to say he's not wrong. And let me pull up the exact stat that he sent me in a DM because this was a bit concerning. He said, hold on. Hold on. I know this makes for great show. Mhm. Gosh, I can't find it. But he had said it was something like Fred Warner was targeted. I want to say it was 11. That seems awfully high. Whatever the number was, 6, 9, 11. Maybe he's in the chat. I don't know. And he can clarify. But whatever it was, they completed every single pass last week where he was targeted. Fred Warner, not Campbell, Fred Warner. So whether that number was 11 or 6 or 9 or whatever the number was, every single time they targeted Fred Warner in the passing game, they completed a pass. So I don't think, and now maybe that's because his ankle's hurt a little bit more than what he's letting on. Maybe the extra rest will give him some time and that won't be a thing. But I don't think it's just Campbell that we have to worry about getting cooked by Kelsey. I think they basically manned Fred Warner up on Kelsey at times in the Super Bowl down the stretch, and it didn't go well. Fred Warner is a phenomenal linebacker, probably the best coverage linebacker in the game. But if you're asking him to man on man with Kelsey all game, Kelsey's going to win that matchup. So yes, if Campbell is going to be matched up on Kelsey, it's not going to go well for him, because I don't think it would go great for Fred. It's definitely not going to go well for Campbell. And I think that it is a concern for sure, especially coming off a bye week, because Kelsey's going to be about as rested as he can be, to where you could see him have a big game here. But also there have been times where Kansas City really hasn't used him in game plan for him. So I don't know. But if they want to use him in game plan for him, it definitely could be ugly for sure. So not ideal. Austin 863 at Austin 863 says, can we take anything positive from another Chiefs loss? Can we take anything positive from another Chiefs loss? I guess it depends on how the game plays out. I don't think, actually, no. I don't think they can take anything positive in a way of like moral victory, if that makes sense. Like against Kansas City, strictly, you can't take anything positive. But in general, can they take something positive out of it? Yeah, they can. They can. If they lose the game, I mean, it's a loss to an AFC team. You're still probably first in the division or right there. You have Dallas next week, and then you have a bye. So, I mean, you're going to go into your bye on a win streak no matter what, whether it's one game or 3 at this point. You're still going to be in the driver's seat or dang near close to it in the NFC West. You're going to come out of that bye rested, hopefully with CMC on the roster, maybe with Dre Greenlaw. And you got a chance to make a run. I think a loss to Kansas City means everything if you play Kansas City in the Super Bowl. In fact, this reminds me, I'll have to ask this question tomorrow to the Chiefs content creator that I have coming on, because I've made this statement before, and I want to see what Chiefs fans actually think, where I've said we are to the Chiefs what the Cowboys are to us, meaning they don't stress about the 49ers at all. When we play the Cowboys, just be real. When we play the Cowboys, do any of you get any sort of anxiety or worry at all? Yes or no? Do you have any anxiety or worry that we're going to lose to the Cowboys when we play them? Yes or no? You do? Oh, okay. Hell no. Okay. Tiny bit right at the start. Okay. None. No. No. Nah. No. Yes. Okay. A couple of you do. I would venture to say that those of you saying yes get nervous for every game because that's just the way you are. Some people fan that way. Like when my favorite fighter is fighting, I get nervous for them, genuinely nervous. And when the 49ers are in a big game, I get genuinely nervous for them. Like when they were playing the Eagles last year, that was such a big game, so much hype around that game. I genuinely got nervous for a regular season game, which doesn't happen very often in the regular season. It just doesn't. But for that game, like my nerves were going. Now it turned out great, but I would say I venture to guess that you just get nervous for every game if you're saying yes. But I'll ask the content creator tomorrow if the Chiefs, look at the 49ers as any sort of threat, like if they're just nervous about that matchup in general. Because my guess is that they're probably not. So if the 49ers lose to the Chiefs again and then have to play them in the Super Bowl, that this loss means everything. Everything. Because the 49ers are going to have to beat the Chiefs in the regular season if they want any shot at real confidence when they face them again in the Super Bowl. It's just the way it's going to have to be. Much like Dallas would have to beat the 49ers in the regular season if they want any shot at beating them in the playoffs. Now, if the 49ers lose to Dallas, it's not, I mean, maybe this year it would mean a big deal because of the way the season started. But like as far as their psyche against Dallas, it means nothing if we lose to the Dallas Cowboys. Nothing as far as their psyche the next time they go play the Cowboys. Literally nothing. But if the Cowboys lose to the 49ers, they're going to have no confidence that they can beat the 49ers. Same thing with the 49ers in Kansas City. So, but the original question is, can you take anything positive in another loss to Kansas City? Well, I would say the positive thing is the chances that you A, make it to the Super Bowl and B, play Kansas City again, I think are pretty low. Pretty low that matchup happens again. So my point is if you lose to Kansas City, the one positive thing you can take out of it is that if you get to the Super Bowl, maybe you're not going to play Kansas City Chiefs, all right? And if that's the case, then this loss means nothing. But if you win this game, a win means everything. Because if you do face the Kansas City Chiefs, not that they wouldn't have the mental upper hand, because they would still. But now, instead of thinking you can beat them, and then the moment you get punched in the mouth or they start to make that comeback, the doubt starts to creep in. Now you know you can beat them. It doesn't exercise all the demons from the past. It doesn't then make Kansas City look at you as some juggernaut that they can't beat. But what it does do is it shows you that you can beat them if it comes down to it. It's a big, big deal if you can win that game. Also, if you're not going to play Kansas City, just for the rest of this season, if you beat Kansas City, they're going to beat Dallas. So then you're going to go into your bye week on a 3-game winning streak, come out of that bye week rested against a team like Tampa, who's been pretty good this year. You're on a roll. On the road, by the way. You're on a roll. So a win does so much for this team, whether they face Kansas City in the Super Bowl or not. A loss is annoying, but I don't think it necessarily means they're not making the playoffs. It's annoying because you still haven't won 2 in a row and you're still kind of doing this. But if you don't play Kansas City in the Super Bowl, it's not really going to mean much in the grand scheme of anything. It's just not. So I guess that's something positive you can take out of it. All right. Last question from the YouTube chat side as far as the post that I made, and then I'll get to your actual questions in the chat as well. H. Sean 2778 and Teddy Payne 20 both asked a very similar question, so I put both their name on there because they were like right next to each other. It says, will Bosa crash down and give up a big play? I mean, probably. I mean, if they put him in that situation, he's probably going to mess up once. If you look at the way the 49ers have won the last two games, or excuse me, the Chiefs have won the last two games against the 49ers, both of them have involved putting the defensive ends in conflict. Mainly Bosa. In the Super Bowl, we saw where you basically had like a read option. They put Bosa in conflict, and Mahomes made big, timely plays with his legs. But if you remember a couple years ago, they lost off of jet sweeps, essentially. I think it was like Mecole Hardman and I forget who I want to say Khalil Shakir, but he's on Buffalo. Sky Moore, I think. Was it Sky Moore and Mecole Hardman? Whoever it was. I think those were the two players. Maybe it was Kadarius Toney. I'm not sure. At any rate, they were using those guys on end arounds, and it was cooking the 49ers. Absolutely unstoppable. So their offensive game plan, the last two times they played the 49ers, it has been constructed differently on how they were going to do it, but they've attacked and put Bosa and the defensive ends for the 49ers in conflict on a regular basis in big time moments in those games. So chances are they're going to try to do that again. And if they do, Bosa's going to whiff a time or two. Also, I will say, though, one thing I have seen from Bosa this year that he's done better than probably at any point in his whole career, he's doing a really good job of reading and reacting what's going on behind him in the screen game. So maybe that loss to Kansas City in the Super Bowl somehow had him working on whatever his deficiency is there, and he's figured something out. But I've got to imagine we're at least going to see the attempt. And if they do it multiple times, that there's going to be a time in that game where Bosa is probably in conflict and is a reason a big play happens. Let's just hope it doesn't matter and it's not like in a game-changing moment. Like, let's hope it's the first drive of the game on the third play and it doesn't mean a lot. So, okay. So, Brad Morrison says, are we going to talk trade ideas today? Yeah, definitely. So I made a whole video about this the other day. I talked about Max Crosby and how that's highly unlikely that he gets traded in general. I feel like guys that are under contract, whether it's Garrett, Crosby, Josh Allen, Hines, those guys, if they're going to get traded and it's between Detroit and the 49ers, it's going to be Detroit because long term, they don't have a Bosa and a Fred Warner and some of these big time defensive players that are under massive contracts. Now they do have the quarterback, they have the receiver, they have two running backs that, well, one rookie contract and one kind of semi-expensive running back, and then a plethora of offensive linemen. But I feel like they're better equipped to take on a contract for a 3-year time span than the 49ers are, just because the 49ers do have a Bosa and a Warner already on defense that are very highly paid. And Warner's deal is going to have to be reworked soon. Like he's gonna be asking for more money probably this next offseason. So at that rate, I just feel like those big name guys, if they get traded, the Detroit Lions are probably in a better opportunity to get those guys because A, I think they're more desperate, and B, I think long term they can take on a contract like that. Also, when I look at Max Crosby specifically, his contract is very team friendly, I think, for the few years. But he's going to want to rework soon. And let's not forget that the Raiders had Khalil Mack. The 49ers offered more than what the Bears did, and they still traded him to the Bears. So the likelihood of the 49ers getting Max, very low. Garrett is a pipe dream, I think, as is probably a Josh Allen Hines. Okay, but now that we got that out of the way, Hassan Reddick, obviously a big name floating around. I said on Sunday when I made the video, and I still stand by this, I don't think that a good, strong cultural team like the 49ers and like the Lions are going to want to deal with somebody like that. Now, the reason I keep bringing up the Lions is because they had this injury to Hutchinson. And so if we're talking specifically defensive ends, we're going to have to compete potentially for the same players. So that's why they're in this conversation as well. And because they didn't only lose Hutchinson, but they also lost Davenport, who they signed in the offseason, they need a defensive end way worse than the 49ers do. But the 49ers always seem to be in the market for a defensive end, okay? But I don't think Hassan Reddick fits the bill at all. I think Jadeveon Clowney, Zadarius Smith, those types of players, maybe you can sneak an Ojulari from the Giants. Maybe. I don't know if I would be excited to trade him if I were them, but who knows? Maybe. Okay. Other positions of need. The 49ers could use a running back. I think I would look at somebody like Alexander Madison. Like if CMC is not going to come back, I think Madison would be a good fit. He's on a 1-year deal. He has been in this system. I think he's a good serviceable back. I think Jeff Wilson Jr. obviously would fit the mold. So I would look at those guys. If they're looking at defensive tackle, gosh, I mean, there's a lot of defensive tackles that you could look at. I don't think any of them are going to be great. I think a lot of 49er fans would love to have Jones. I don't know. I feel like Denver, if they were going to trade him, they would have done it last year. I don't know that they're going to trade this year. Their defense looks pretty good. So I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of defensive tackles are kind of dime a dozen, and there's a lot out there. I also think that their rotation getting healthy has been kind of good. I mean, with Kalia Davis, I felt like it's only been a game, so it's hard to say. But I felt like they just came in waves last week with the defensive tackle. And so maybe that's what it is. Instead of just having elite defensive tackles, you just have waves of defensive tackles that you can put out there. And in third downs, you can move guys from defensive end to defensive tackle and put out NASCAR packages and do whatever you want. I just feel like having depth is a big, big deal. So I think that might work for them. They're not going to go get a receiver. That doesn't make any sense. I don't care whether they're separating or not, or, whatever is going on. They have way too many assets in that position as it is. Offensive linemen are hard to get this time of year, but maybe you can pry somebody away from Cleveland if they're just going to have a fire sale at this point and take my suggestion with the Deshaun Watson thing. Then, there's a lot of guys you can trade, not just Myles Garrett. So, yeah, I mean, I think that you can get an offensive lineman. I just think offensive linemen are really, really hard to get at the trade deadline. They're just really, really hard to get. So, but those are probably the candidates that I would come up with. Defensively, I mean, maybe they could use a linebacker, but You hope that Greenlaw's back soon and he's 80% of what he was, and you're going to have an upgrade there. I think playing the young guys like Bethune and Winters, you can inject some life into the defense here. The 49ers did sign Adrian Amos today, who used to be a really good player. But what does that mean? I mean, is Safunga out? How long is Safunga out for? Also, Malik Mustafa, how long is he out for? Is he going to play this week with his ankle injury? There's a lot of unknowns. But I would say, for me, defensive linemen, whether it's interior or exterior, offensive center, specifically a center would be great to upgrade, but I think that's going to be tough. And then I think a running back, somebody like Alexander Madison, would be perfect for this team. So that's what I would be looking at. I don't know if the big splash player is realistic this year for the 49ers. I don't necessarily think they need a big splash player to win either. Keith Murphy, the unbeaten, says, how are we betting favorites this weekend? I mean, they're at home, I guess. They were betting favorites in the Super Bowl. They've been betting favorites every game this year, and they were betting favorites in every game they played in last year. It doesn't mean that you're going to win every game, but they've been betting favorites in a lot of these games. Most of these games, actually, show. So, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think Evan Anderson's another one. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know. I agree. Completely agree. Yes. 1.5, I think. I think it's -1.5. But that means they're a favorite. Negative means you're a favorite. He is, yeah. Yeah. I don't know that the 49ers need a corner, though. Moises Rosales says, keep up the great work, Jesse. Thank you. Says, you think Mason plays this week? I do. Yeah, for sure. Evan Anderson, I see multiple people talking about him. It does kind of feel this way. That whole story was like, man. I'll tell you somebody who might be up for a trade after last night is Javon Kinlaw. It's just like, dude, did anybody else watch that game? I tweeted out, man, he must be seeing Grant's face on everybody right now because he is gone full out psycho mode right now. What is going on? I don't know. We'll see. I said I did talk about him earlier. I wouldn't be surprised if they sit him out one more week. But I think he'll be playing soon. He should be the punt returner, in my opinion. JM 617 back. No, it was back to back penalties, I think. And got ejected because he had the roughing the passer. Then he had the pre-snap penalty on the kick, on the field goal attempt. Then the actual field goal attempt where after they moved him up 5 yards or half the distance to the goal, he was cursing out a ref and got kicked out of the game. So he was 3, and then that was enforced on the kickoff. So he had 3 in a row. It's crazy. Dude, and yeah, he's not any better in the run game either. But anyways, I think he might be available. Yeah, they do pump up. I think Breece Hall at his best is really good, but it's interesting because you're seeing guys like him, Taylor, some other guys that just pop up for like a year or two and then they're just gone, or they're okay. They're Allen, though, what is it? Braylon Allen? Is that his name? Their rookie running back? He's good. He's really good. Let's see. Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yep. Oh, okay, okay. Did they not boot him? It was at the end of the game, so it didn't really matter, but still. Yeah, Brees is good. Well, also to be fair, we don't what is CMC level anymore? I mean, we're talking about last year's CMC. We don't know what CMC is this year. He hasn't even played. So, hey Chiefs, without trolling, please, 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 please answer this question super honestly. Give me a thumbs up if you can answer a question honestly. Because I'm not going to ask it. Like, if you're just going to like troll, then there's no point in asking the question. But I have a genuine question for you. And it's not a question where I'm trolling you either. It's a genuine question that I want you to answer. Last year's CMC. Perfect. Yeah, there we go. Moises, thank you, Moises. I really appreciate it. It says, just want to support the channel. Thank you so much, man. I really, really appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. He's not, yeah, exactly. He's not going to answer the question. I'm going to ask it to my behind enemy lines guy tomorrow. So it's a real genuine question. Yeah, right. I don't know if he does or doesn't. I know that there was the clip that went viral in the preseason, or excuse me, in training camp. I don't know if that's actually carried over to the NFL, but there are so many ways to get him a free release. I'm also not near as worried about him as I am like a Kelsey. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. We talked about the refs. Talked about the refs. We the head of fish the head official is Alex Kemp. He happened to officiate 3 playoff games in the last 3 years, and all 3 of them were 49er victories. So I think what was it? No, 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 no. It's really not a troll question. The question is this. I've been saying for a long time, much to the chagrin of this fan base, that I feel like we are to the Chiefs what the Cowboys are to us, meaning as a fan base, our heart rate doesn't get up when we play the Dallas Cowboys. Like the concern we have when we play the Cowboys, extremely low, if nothing at all. Do Chiefs fans feel the same way that we do about the Cowboys, but about us? And I think I'm going to take your answer with a grain of salt, even though I think it's probably going to back me up here. And I'll ask my co-host tomorrow night on Behind Enemy Lines the same question. But I am curious to see, because if I was a Chiefs fan, I wouldn't worry about the Niners. Yeah, that's true. That's totally true. You could say that about the Ravens and the Bills and all the teams as well. That's actually probably pretty true. That's pretty true. I, I swear, if Vinovich is the head official for a Super Bowl and us again, I didn't think so. I didn't think so. I appreciate it though. I appreciate it. Hopefully you're being honest. Feel like you are, but there you go. Yeah, they respect him, but they're not worried about him. You know what I mean? What's your realistic expectation for what a Brock Purdy deal looks like next year? I think realistically, you're probably looking at 4-year, 220. 4-year, 220. Now, how that breaks out, I mean, there's so many different things you can do to kind of break that money out. I would expect that it's obviously going to go up significantly after next season. So next season, he'll still be cheap. But the year after that, it'll go up significantly. But I don't think it'll be like he'll be $55 million overnight by any means. In year 3, it will. It'll probably jump up quite a bit. But I would imagine that they have an out after 2 years like they do with all their players. And I think AAV is probably around $55 million. I think that's the realistic expectation. Yeah, I would take it. Oh, I don't think we motion too much at all. We talked about that earlier as well and how that actually helps. Excuse me. We played Minnesota. Minnesota's a real defense. And I will say this, Chiefs, again. Your defense can be had in the pass game. Your run defense this year is amazing, but you guys give up some yards and don't force a lot of turnovers or sacks in the pass game. You guys are like bend but don't break in the pass game. But your run defense has been, dude, extremely, extremely good. So I think there's a scenario where Purdy can have a pretty damn good game, actually. I would say slim to none. I think the 49ers know what the market is. I don't think they're going to play around with Purdy maybe the way they have with other contracts. I don't think it'll get contentious or anything like that. This one, Glance LED. Just type in Glance LED. It'll come up. It'll come up. It's pretty sweet. And it's easy to set up. It's once you've bought it, it's not like a subscription or anything like that. You can set it up. There's a website. You go set it up to whatever sports or weather or stocks that you want to do. So there you go. All right, y'all. Listen. 9 p.m. So in 45 minutes, 9 p.m. Eastern, I'll be on the NFC West Roundtable. So come represent the 49ers with me. We're the only team in the West that won this week, so it should be pretty easy. And then tomorrow, I'll be on with Grant, and right after that, we'll be here behind enemy lines with Daniel, who's an incredible content creator. I had 2 Chiefs content creators on last year for the Super Bowl. He was the second one. A lot of you really, really enjoyed him. Very knowledgeable, does a ton of film review and breakdowns. He's just a super smart guy, football wise. And then you add in he's a Chiefs fan. I think he's the best of the best when it comes to breaking down the Chiefs. So absolutely love him. He's going to be on tomorrow. So I think we're in for a fire show. Got a lot of good questions for him. I'm curious to see what his answer is on some of these things. So until tomorrow on this channel, I'll say peace, but hopefully y'all are in the NFC West roundtable in about 45 minutes. We'll talk soon. Peace.